that result. Even though he didn't win the game with the white pieces, he realistically should have lost.
And Aman, on the flip side, a case has to be made that with the black pieces, Denis put on so much pressure, and it was sort of withdraw from a pure position of strength by him.
100%. Yeah, the match is really shifting in Denis's direction. Arjun has not got on the board with a win in the last 4 games. It's really been a while. Denis, now with the time on the match clock at about 2 minutes, there's one more game. Denis is going to finish this segment with the white pieces. So an absolutely crucial game right here. A massive difference between a 3 and a 1 game advantage going into the bullet, Tanya.
Absolutely. This one is just incredibly critical. I will say about Arjun, he is an absolute fighter. He is a beast. And I think he gets only stronger with his back against the wall in these pressure moments. So he's going to do his best to make sure that the margin remains as close as possible. But so far, Denis has been just, I'll just say, Denis, it just feels like he's been the better player in the match so far. You know, in the 5+1 portion, taking the lead every single time. Now up by 2 points. It's not going to be easy for Arjun with black here as well.
No, that's exactly right. Another position that Denis is happy to have. He's got the doubled e-pawns, but usually that lends itself more to these positions where you start pushing the f-pawn in order to connect the pawns and guard e5.
Absolutely. And we see the trades that have happened. The queen, it was threatening e6 in certain position. So dislodging the queen from the center. e6 is still a big threat on the board. Again, the pattern of opening up that bishop on b2 with a pawn sacrifice.
Right. Yeah, it's been a real theme today. Queen c8 offering an exchange. I have to say, pawn to e6, I really didn't expect. Yeah, still, you know, we're calling that. We've seen it before. But obviously black anticipated that, and that's why you see a really quick move, pawn to g6.
And we're into this endgame where even though there's, it's not symmetrical, but there are some patterns emerging, right? With the 4 versus 2 on either side, which means that it's a very dynamic endgame. It's equal, the bar is level, but because we're going to see potentially a race, it's still anyone's game, this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, have to watch out for bishop e6. So that's why the rook went to the awkward c6 square. And because we see f4, now Denis is in a position where I guess after maybe pawn d4, the pawn on e2, it's just a backwards pawn. Question about b4 here?
And that's a big one. That's one of those, you know, you want to target the, well, not the base, but c5, which is defending the d4 pawn. It looks like a very tempting move. If it's on Denis's radar, he will play it. You could also be tempted to make moves like bishop g2, just trying to trade off the light squared bishop right now.
Yep.
But b4, does Denis find it? He does. He's on his A game today.
Yeah, he really is. b4 was a great move, but it has to be said, the reaction is not that obvious because you go and take that pawn, all of a sudden e2 falls. So what he's trying to do is take with the other rook so he can still play defense over here. Black is going to have a big advantage. Let's say you play a5 and you lose this pawn. You get a really imbalanced position. 2 pawns for black on the queen side, 2 pawns for white in the center and on the king side. Very, very imbalanced game going forward.
But I love it because it also means that, well, it's going to be a fun endgame for one, but also the fact that black has got 2 double pawns. I wonder if it means more difficulty in creating a passer. Meanwhile, for white, you know, the plan could be clear. You want to trade off the light squared bishop, get your king towards the center, and go e4, e5.
Yep, I agree completely. Arjun is pausing here, maybe realizing
Bishop
exactly
A6.
that. It was the first time that we had seen Arjun up on time. Bishop a6, I like.
And that's a move that has to be on his radar because, again, a5, he goes for a5.
And looks like a bunch of moves were missing there and, you know, abracadabra, and we're 10 moves ahead, and it looks like exactly all that happened.
I think what happened was he went d3 before he played a5, if I had to take a guess. Because otherwise, pawn takes pawn. How did the white pawn even come on the d line? So he first sacrificed it on d3, disconnected the white pawns, and now he's gone for this endgame, Aman.
That makes more sense. King coming into the center. I have to say, in these positions, so tough to evaluate who is actually better. You mentioned the difficulty of advancing double pawns. We're seeing it here. Can't play b3, can't play a4. The rook on d4 holds all three of these pawns to a halt.
But now it just, you see the genius of Arjun's move d3 earlier on, because imagine that d pawn was on the e file and suddenly Denis would have an absolute free hand on the right flank there, going e4, e5. The 4 versus 2 would be so much stronger. And of course, there's just no way that Denis would trade on Arjun's terms there, allowing the b pawn to become a c pawn instead. He keeps the tension. He advances on the tension.
Yeah, king e5. I mean, king e7 is the move that you're kind of thinking about here. And I also wonder about a move like rook to b2. Feels like a way to target the b pawn, and then maybe black would be forced into b3, a3. This could get really interesting.
And maybe that's why he played rook d8, threatening rook e8 check, so forcing the white rook to stay on d2. It's exactly against the idea that you mentioned.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's important. Honestly, d6 is the move that I start looking at here now that the rook has moved, but then black has a couple moves. Rook c5 forces the king back.
It's still incredibly tricky, this endgame. He gives a check. Is he going to come back with his rook? Well, he first has to defend the b pawn. And if you take pawn takes pawn, I think Arjun happily captures with the rook. And suddenly the double pawns are off the board.
Yeah, I think he's done a really good job. I'm almost looking at rook b4 as some kind of move, but man, rook c2 in that position might even win the game.
Arjun's setting up some tricks here that you have to be really careful about. It's a race. It's a pawn race. d7 looks scary. Rook c8. Is that actually as big a threat as it looks like? Because there's king e7.
Yeah, I actually thought he was going to go rook c7 to get behind the pawns and then maybe do this. This was not what I expected. King e7, apparently a mistake. What?
There was something completely winning for Arjun in that position.
I do not know what it was, and it did not seem obvious. What on earth is this position here? Everything's hanging.
You take the rook, black queens. You could give a check and then queen yourself, and that's what we're going to see. What is this piece dynamic? We've got new queens on the
White
board.
can easily win here. There's rook d2 as well.
It's a blunder. He had to go back with the king.
Oh my goodness. If you take it's a check, and he just gets hunted down here. Check after check. There was no other option. Can Denis find it?
And that's the thing, right? When you've got queen rook versus queen rook in these positions, it's about the player who gives the first check. So that you can really, just checkmate the king. Wow. And there we have it. It's a checkmate on the board.
Checkmate on the board. And 8.5 to 5.5 as the 3+1 segment comes to an end. Even though it is such a close match, we did see the edge in blitz, which is what we sort of expected for Denis. Now, the question is, does Arjun have what it takes to bring it back in the bullet? Because this is the biggest margin of the match, Tanya.
A 3-point lead, that's massive, and you can see it on Arjun on the screen that he's definitely feeling it. It is the bullet portion that's coming up next, the 1+1. The grand finale, the grand segment, which is adrenaline fuel. It is going to be on the instincts, and anything can happen when it comes to bullet. But 8.5 to 5.5, I think, Aman, few would have predicted.